October is Stress Awareness Month. So, since all of us have something that is causing stress in our lives, whether it is family, the holidays coming up, financial situation, your job, or even something going on, some kind of an imbalance within our bodies, let's talk about stress, but also the connection between our adrenals and thyroid. They are intimately connected. So, stress affects our energy output, adrenals, hormones, weight gain, all things that people are often coming to me asking for support with. So there's a lot of things that we can do and look into from a nutrition and lifestyle perspective, as well as lab testing to make sure that we're addressing all of this. Now, perimenopause, specifically when we're talking about women, it's a stress test for our HPA axis, our hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. But for all people, cortisol plays a huge role. We're talking about the interplay between our adrenal and thyroid, and it's usually rooted in some sort of cortisol adrenal imbalance, or vice versa. They can cause one another and drive issues. So, a lot of people that I work with report symptoms like fatigue or brain fog or cognitive changes or mood swings, and that is often directly related to the HPA thyroid axis. So that interplay between your adrenals and your thyroid. Now, cortisol, whether it's too high or too low, it usually starts out by being too high, where our adrenals are pumping out cortisol stress hormones at a really high rate. That usually comes far before hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. I know for me that was the case for me. In my 20s, I pushed my body to the max with taking on way too much with work, doing lots of exercise, training for Ironmans and ultra marathons, and just not listening to my body. And it ended up leading down this road of adrenal thyroid dysfunction and gut issues. So let's talk about how you can avoid that or start to make amends with your body and make some repairs if you're already on that path. So, how does it work? The HPA axis is kind of like our stress system in our body, and it's amazing. We couldn't live for more than a few seconds without it, so it's not the bad guy. But when we have chronic stress, and that could be even in something like driving to work or a ding on our phones or a stressful work email or blood sugar issues, right? It could be a host of things. Now, that elevates stress hormones that tell our bodies to produce more cortisol and eventually leads to dysregulation. Now, cortisol is so important that we're going to keep on pulling minerals out of our body. This can lead to mineral and vitamin deficiencies, eventually pulling from the bare minerals that we need to have healthy bones, to have healthy digestive enzymes, to repair muscle and tissue. Cortisol, a normal pattern, if I were to test it through saliva, and that's the best way to test, it should be highest in the morning. It's like our get up and go. It gets us out of bed in the morning, and then it should slowly drop throughout the course of the day so we're ready for sleep at night. Now, oftentimes it's sort of flip-flopped where maybe you feel like the alarm goes off and you're like, oh, I cannot even move. Or maybe you're exhausted all day and then it sort of like blips up at night, this tired but wired feeling when you finally have a chance to lay down. Both are directly related to the health of your adrenals. Now, cortisol impacts our blood sugar. They sort of rise and fall together. So they're directly related because think about it. If you need cortisol, your body's like priming you to fight or flight, and it's going to pump you full of blood sugar so you can do that. And eventually it's going to lead to cortisol and blood sugar and insulin resistance issues in the long term. Now, it messes with ovarian hormone signaling. It also tanks testosterone. And I am seeing an epidemic in men and women of low testosterone. It's our vitality hormone. It helps us to have healthy metabolism and body composition, to manage stress, and even inflammation and immune function. So now when we're talking about the thyroid piece of it, the hypothalamus, it starts in our brain. It sends a signal to make thyroid hormone. And that's also why I like to test in a lab. I want to see the whole pathway. And 90% of the time, doctors are only running little bits and pieces of it. So we want to see TSH, the signal from the brain, which then goes over to free T4, the inactive storage form, which has to then convert to free T3, That's the gold. This is what we have receptors for on every cell, organ, and tissue in our body. And if we're not converting it to active thyroid hormone, or if we are converting it back to reverse T3 and that's super high, both are going to shut you down when it comes to brain health, brain fog, cognitive function, anxiety, irritability, depression. It's going to shut down gut motility. Maybe you have issues going to the bathroom regularly, daily, and not too urgent or too slow. It's going to affect, all kinds of things. And T3, that's our master metabolism hormone. So we want things flowing well, along the lines of, fat burning, energy production, mood, cognition, gut motility. Now, the two communicate. And so we can't just address one without addressing the other. So if cortisol is high, it's going to inhibit that TSH, thyroid hormone. It's going to block that conversion from T4 inactive to T3 active. We do not want that, especially over 40, when we are also dealing with what's called thyropause. We already have trouble converting, so we do not need more issues. It can also contribute to low free T3, which can make you feel terrible. Even if you're on thyroid medication, doesn't mean your body can convert that. So it's something we need to look deeper into. And it can drive up reverse T3, which basically just puts your body in shutdown mode. Hair, going to the bathroom, energy, brain, it just shuts it down. So when we're talking about thyroid health, that was one of my first symptoms. I was a healthy 20-something-year-old Ironman athlete, but my thyroid had been shut down and my adrenals had been pushed to the max. And gut motility, that was one of my first and only signs. And so we have to really pay close attention to those symptoms. Now, I always say thyroid health is it's like a canary in the coal mine for stress and inflammation. And so we need to be mindful of stress and inflammation. We need to be mindful of things that are going to poison our thyroid receptors too. Things like BPA, swapping out plastics in water bottles, not touching receipt paper, drink and food can linings. Even BPA free is turning out to be worse than BPA. So try to find a glass or something else that is reusable and not BPA or BPA free. The other thing that parks on your thyroid receptor and blocks hormone production is found in our water. So things like chlorine, bromide, fluoride, they compete with the iodine that we need to convert thyroid hormone. And so it's kind of like a 3-to-1, right? So even just getting a really good quality water filter can be really, really helpful because then your body doesn't have to be the water filter. Specifically for women in perimenopause, fluctuations in estrogen will directly contribute to thyroid issues. And then low progesterone, our calming hormone, both of those are really important for buffering and balancing cortisol and just amplifying that stress response. So making us less resilient to stress. And it's why you might feel like, you just can't handle stress anymore, or everything seems overwhelming, or everything makes you irritable. So to close out, it can be confusing because symptoms of adrenal issues and thyroid issues often overlap. So some of the symptoms that can be one or both are things like fatigue, especially in the morning or afternoon, weight gain, despite not changing anything everywhere, but especially in the belly, cold intolerance or fluctuating body temperatures, anxiety, or that kind of tired but wired feeling we talked about when you lie down at night. If your hair is getting thin or brittle or breaking or lost, or your nails or your skin is changing, that is a big sign, or you're losing the outer third of your eyebrows. And then brain fog and mood instability is huge. I had a couple of women ask me today, like, why are we experiencing more anxiety, irritability, mood swings, feeling more edgy? And it can be blood sugar, cortisol, gut issues. That's where our neurotransmitters are made, right? Our calming and happiness neurotransmitters. All of these things can make you feel more short-fused and anxious. So at the end of the day, make sure that you're running labs on all of those thyroid markers. If you want help getting access to a salivary cortisol pattern, or just start by doing some basic things to address and make sure that your cortisol and thyroid are happy. Some lifestyle things you can do are just balancing blood sugar. So aim for 25 to 40 grams of protein at each meal, front loading protein at the beginning of the day and beginning of the meal, alongside some healthy fat and fiber. Eating within 1 hour of waking. Now, this might sound counterintuitive because of all the talk about intermittent fasting, but for someone who is dealing with adrenal fatigue and their cortisol, they're already in this high cortisol stress catabolic muscle breakdown state. The last thing we want to do is tell our bodies, you may never eat again. You're starving, hold on to everything, right? So it can be helpful for a while to make sure that you're eating within about an hour of waking, and avoid fasted exercise or morning fasting until you've really started to restore that HPA axis balance. For temporarily fasted exercise might not be your friend, except for walking. I tell everyone, get outside first thing in the morning. That natural morning light, it's like the natural red light therapy. It's going to reset your stress hormones. It's going to reset cortisol. It is so powerful for helping you kind of reset your brain to help you sleep that night as well. Cool your room. Sleep hygiene is important. So what you can do to like maintain a pretty consistent sleep wake time, cool your room down. Body temperature needs to drop about 1 to 3 degrees to go to sleep. Turning lights out by 10:30, including blue screens. That's going to just shut off melatonin production. Some research is pointing towards earlier than that, but at least by 10:30. And then gentle exercise, again, temporarily. Long bouts of HIIT and cardio may just amplify that cortisol response. So build your foundation on a adrenal and thyroid healthy workout plan that really centers on strength training at least about 2 to 3 times a week, and just general movement and walking, things that put you straight into fat burning mode without spiking cortisol. And then if you love cardio, add that in later, or do some short but more intense bursts of maybe 10-minute HIIT intervals after you strength train. And just, of course, stress management. We can't live in a monastery, but we can integrate things like making sure we have plenty of B vitamins, magnesium, things like our minerals and electrolytes, and then just taking a moment to take a deep belly breath. When you feel that cortisol stress response, it will totally reset your nervous system. Taking time out for, prayer, meditation, and even just what's called non-sleep restorative activity. When we're busy and overwhelmed, it's easy to overlook that, but it's so important. And then finally, that morning and midday outdoor light is so powerful. We are wildly deficient in natural light. And so just get outside, get some of that, and keep building on those small shifts over time. I mean, as I mentioned, to wrap up, your adrenal thyroid axis, it's like your metabolic thermostat. So it's directly tied to blood sugar, fatigue, weight gain, sleep issues, things that so many of us are dealing with. So I hope that you can take away a few key tips, and I would love to hear your questions for future videos.